What if I told you that the single most valuable decision in American business history wasn't a brilliant product launch or a billion-dollar merger, but a college dropout walking away from a degree that his parents had saved their entire lives to pay for? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're gonna see the American dream not as a cliche on a bumper sticker, but as a high-stakes, sweat and code blueprint that one kid from Seattle used to change the way every single one of us works, plays, and lives. Let's rewind to 1973. The Vietnam War is winding down, gas prices are hitting American families hard. We're talking lines at the pump that stretch for blocks. Richard Nixon is in the White House, and the average cost of a new home in the U.S. is around $28,000. In a quiet, bookish household in Seattle, Washington, a lanky, freckle-faced teenager named Bill Gates is about to do something that would horrify most middle-class American parents. He's going to trade a sure thing, a golden ticket to one of the country's best law schools, for a gamble on a machine that most people still thought was a glorified calculator. Bill Gates was not born into poverty. Let's get that straight up front. His father was a prominent attorney. His mother, Mary Gates, served on national boards. This was an upper-middle-class American family that had the kind of dinner table conversations where you discussed civic duty and ambition. But here's where the story gets uniquely American. His parents sent him to Lakeside School, an exclusive private prep school, and in 1968, that school did something radical for the era. They bought a computer terminal. Not a computer, a teletype machine connected to a mainframe miles away. It cost the school thousands of dollars, funds raised by hard-working American families in the district, and that machine became the altar where Bill Gates found his religion. By the time Bill was 13, he was sneaking out of his bedroom window at night. Not to party, no, this was Seattle in the early 70s. He was sneaking out to walk several miles to the University of Washington's computer lab, where he'd spend hours hacking code, sleeping on hard vinyl chairs, and reading manuals that were thicker than the Seattle phone book. This is the first lesson of the American dream, obsession disguised as curiosity. But his parents weren't celebrating, they were worried. They saw a brilliant son who was flunking everything except math. They saw a kid who could recite the periodic table but forgot to turn in his English homework. To them, computers were a fad, like pet rocks or disco. Real success meant a stable job, a 401k, and a house with a white picket fence in the suburbs. But Bill saw something they couldn't: the future. Fast forward to 1973. Bill Gates graduates high school and packs his bags for Harvard University. For most American families, this is the moment you've dreamed of since your child's first Little League game. Harvard, the red brick Ivy League dream. His parents breathe a sigh of relief. Finally, they think, he's on the right track. But here's the twist. Bill didn't go to Harvard to study law or medicine. He went because Harvard had one of the only computers in the country that students could actually use. He enrolled in pre-law, but he spent every waking hour in the Aiken Computation Laboratory. He would play poker all night, not for money, but for the psychology of risk, and then code until dawn. He was flirting with academic disaster. His grades were average at best, but inside that skinny frame was a mind that was already building the business model for the next 50 years. Then came the moment, the fork in the road, the kind of moment that separates the guys who retire with a gold watch from the guys who end up on magazine covers. In December of 1974, Bill's childhood friend and fellow coding addict, Paul Allen, rushed into Bill's Harvard dorm room. He was holding a copy of Popular Electronics magazine. On the cover was a machine that would change everything, the Altair 8800. It was the world's first personal computer kit, and it was useless without software. Most people saw a toy for hobbyists. Bill Gates saw a revolution that needed a brain. He called the company MITS and bluffed. He said, "We've written BASIC interpreter for your machine." There was one problem. They hadn't even started. They had zero code, they had no computer, they had nothing but a magazine cover and a lie that would have gotten any normal American kid laughed out of the room. But here's the American magic. They worked. For 8 weeks, Bill and Paul didn't sleep. They used Harvard's mainframe to simulate the Altair. They wrote thousands of lines of code without ever touching the actual machine. When Paul flew to Albuquerque, New Mexico to demonstrate the software, he didn't even know if it would work. He pressed the load button, the teletype clicked, and the computer printed back, ready. The guys at MITS were stunned. A couple of college kids on the other side of the country had just built the missing piece of the puzzle. That's not luck. That's stubborn, caffeine-fueled, all-nighter grit that built this country. Now here's where the American dream gets messy. Bill Gates had to make the call. Do you stay at Harvard, a guarantee of status, security, and a lifetime of "I told you so" from your parents? Or do you drop out, move to Albuquerque, New Mexico, which in the 1970s was a dusty desert town known for nothing but tumbleweeds and nuclear labs, and start a company with a guy who also had no business experience? His parents were horrified. They offered to pay for Harvard. They begged him to get a backup degree. They said, "Bill, what if the computer thing doesn't work out?" Sound familiar? That's the voice of every loving American parent who wants their kid to be safe. But Bill looked at the board. He saw IBM, Apple, and 1,000 other companies that were about to explode. He saw that the window of opportunity was about 3 feet wide and closing fast. In 1975, he withdrew from Harvard. He never went back. And that decision, that terrifying high-wire act, is why you're watching this video on a device that fits in your pocket. Microsoft started in a tiny motel room in Albuquerque. Then it moved to a dingy office with no air conditioning. In the summer, the desert heat was so brutal that they'd code in their underwear. Seriously. There's a famous photo of Bill Gates and Paul Allen surrounded by pizza boxes, soda cans, and miles of printout paper. This was not a Silicon Valley campus with free kombucha. This was scrappy, sweaty American bootstrapping. They didn't have venture capital. They didn't have a marketing budget. They had a single product, a programming language called BASIC. And they had a radical idea that software should be licensed, not given away. In the early days of computing, hobbyists shared code like it was a recipe. Bill Gates wrote an open letter to hobbyists that made him public enemy #1 in the hacker community. He said, "Most of you steal your software. Americans love a winner, but they hate a whiner." He wasn't whining. He was making a bet that intellectual property had value. That bet would make him a billionaire.
The real explosion happened in 1980. This is where the story shifts from a garage band to a global symphony. IBM, the giant of American industry, the company that your grandfather probably worked for, was building its first personal computer. They needed an operating system. They went to the king of software at the time, Digital Research. That deal fell apart, so they knocked on Microsoft's door. Bill Gates saw his moment, but there was a catch. Microsoft didn't have an operating system. They had no time to build one from scratch. So Bill did what any desperate, brilliant 24-year-old American entrepreneur would do. He bought one. He found a tiny company called Seattle Computer Products and paid $50,000 for an operating system called QDOS, Quick and Dirty Operating System. Then he tweaked it, renamed it MS-DOS, and licensed it to IBM. But here's the masterstroke, the move they teach in business schools today. Bill did not sell the operating system to IBM, he licensed it, and he kept the rights to sell MS-DOS to other computer manufacturers. IBM, the giant, thought the money was in the hardware, the big metal boxes. Bill knew the money was in the software, the invisible magic that made the boxes useful. That single decision turned Microsoft from a small coding shop into a tax on the entire PC industry. Every time a company like Compaq, Dell, or HP sold a computer, they paid Microsoft. It was like owning the only gas station on a cross-country highway, and that highway was called America. By 1986, Microsoft went public. The IPO raised $61 million. Bill Gates became a billionaire at age 31. Think about that, 31 years old. Most people at that age are trying to figure out how to afford a down payment on a starter home in a decent school district. Bill Gates was worth more than some small countries. But the American dream isn't just about the money. It's about what you do with the power. In the 1990s, Microsoft became the undisputed king of tech. Windows 95 launched with a commercial that used the Rolling Stones' "Start Me Up." People camped outside stores like it was a new iPhone release. It was the ultimate American moment, a product so dominant that it became the background noise of our work lives. Millions of American families bought their first home computer with Windows pre-installed. Kids in suburban basements learned to code on Microsoft products. Office workers in Manhattan skyscrapers cursed at Excel spreadsheets. Bill Gates had done it. He had turned a dorm room fantasy into a company that employed tens of thousands of Americans and made him the richest man on the planet. But here's where the story gets human, because the American dream is also about falling down. In 1998, the U.S. Department of Justice sued Microsoft for antitrust violations. The accusation? That Microsoft was a monopoly that used its power to crush competitors like Netscape, a web browser that dared to challenge Internet Explorer. The trial was a spectacle. We saw Bill Gates on videotape giving testimony that was, let's just say, combative. He was defensive. He argued semantics. The public perception shifted. He went from the genius underdog to the evil empire. For a while, it looked like the government might break up Microsoft, just like they broke up AT&T and Standard Oil. That's the American system. We celebrate you when you build it, but we watch you like a hawk when you get too big. The company survived, but the fight left scars. It taught Bill Gates that power without humility is a target. And then something remarkable happened. The man who dropped out of college to chase code started to chase something else, giving away his fortune. In 2000, he and his wife, Melinda, started the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. With an endowment of over $50 billion, that's billion with a B, they set out to solve the world's most stubborn problems: malaria, polio, sanitation, education. They didn't just write checks, they applied the same ruthless, data-driven, obsessive mindset that built Microsoft to saving lives. They funded research that has saved millions of children in Africa from preventable diseases. They convinced billionaires like Warren Buffett to give away their fortunes too. The kid who sneaked out his bedroom window to code in a cold lab is now building toilets that don't need water and developing vaccines for the next pandemic. He went from Bill Gates the robber baron to Bill Gates the philanthropist. And that's the second act of the American dream. The part where you realize that a bank account with 10 commas doesn't matter if you can't make the world better for the next generation. Let's pause and ask the question that every American watching this video is thinking. Could this happen today? Could a college dropout with a crazy idea and no connections build the next Microsoft? The answer is complicated. The barriers are different. In 1975, you could start a software company with a few $1,000s. Today, AI and cloud computing require massive infrastructure. But the spirit is still alive. Every time you see a kid in a garage in Austin, or a basement in Detroit, or a coffee shop in Brooklyn, staring at a screen at 2 a.m., refusing to quit, that's the echo of Bill Gates. The tools have changed, the hustle hasn't. And here's the truth they don't tell you in the motivational reels. Bill Gates almost failed 100 times. His first business, Trafo Data, was a disaster. His early code had bugs. He was mocked by hobbyists. He was sued by the government. His parents thought he was throwing his life away. But he kept showing up. That's the raw, unfiltered American dream. It's not about being the smartest guy in the room. It's about being the guy who stays in the room when everyone else goes home. So, what's the takeaway for you? You're watching this on a screen. Maybe you're in a cubicle. Maybe you're in a dorm room. Maybe you're in a living room in Ohio, wondering if it's too late to start over. Bill Gates didn't have a roadmap. He didn't have a mentor. He had a magazine cover, a bluff, and a refusal to accept the world as it was. He dropped out of college because the classroom couldn't contain what he wanted to build. And he built Microsoft not because he was destined for greatness, but because he was willing to look foolish, to sleep on floors, to lose friendships, and to fight the government. That's the unfiltered American dream. It's messy, it's scary, it's expensive, but it's real. And here's the part they don't put on the inspirational posters.
Bill Gates today says his biggest regret is not the antitrust trial or the failed products, it's that he didn't learn to trust people sooner. He spent years believing that only his brain could solve problems, but the greatest companies, the greatest lives are built on teams, on families, on that same middle-class American value his parents tried to teach him at the dinner table. You don't go it alone. The ultimate American dream isn't a solo climb to the top. It's building something that lifts everyone around you. That's why in 2020, Bill Gates stepped down from Microsoft's board to focus full-time on the foundation. He realized that the most important code he'll ever write isn't for a computer, it's for humanity.
So the next time you hear someone say the American dream is dead, remember this story. Remember the kid who walked miles in the Seattle dark to touch a machine that didn't even work half the time. Remember the bluff in Albuquerque. Remember the $50,000 operating system that turned into a $100 billion empire. And remember the dropout who became the world's biggest giver. The American dream isn't a guarantee. It's a dare. It's a question. And it's asking you right now, what are you willing to drop out of in order to break into? If this story of grit, risk, and raw American ambition hit you right in the chest, do me a favor. Smash that like button, not for the algorithm, but for the kid in you who still believes in the impossible. Subscribe to Brand Story Lab, because we're the only channel that turns the blueprints of billionaires into fuel for your own fire. And comment down below, would you have dropped out of Harvard, or is that the one bet you wouldn't take? I read every single one. Now get out there and build something that matters. This is Brand Story Lab, signing off.